Esteemed viewer, and welcome once again to today's edition of Citizens and the Law. Citizens and the Law is a program aimed at demystifying all issues standing as strange before the gullible and led persons. Our talk today is on the law of nuisance. You are a nuisance. We always hear people accuse others, when actually does one constitute a nuisance? Is it by becoming a clog in the wheel of progress or crossing the bound of decency? To dot the I's and cross the T's, I have with me here in the studio two learned gentlemen to provide answers to all the questions. By my immediate right, I have a professor in law, Professor Pascal Onyi Oguno. He is Akurienne Enugu Kunomunri. Professor Pascal Onyi Oguno is the Dean Emeritus, Faculty of Law, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Duku University. Professor Oguno is Director of International Linkages and Partnership. He is an international professor of international law and jurisprudence. So many other things about Professor Oguno. Prof, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
And also have with me here in the studio a gentleman who is very familiar and close to this very program. I'm talking about Barrister Larry Emeka Nwangu. Another learned gentleman. Counsel, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you, presenter.
Okay, today, like I said, dear esteemed viewer, we are going to look at this topic. This topic, almighty, it is but small. But however, no topic is small. Nuisance in law. That is the topic for today. So I may start by asking, Professor, let's hear from you. Get on with the definition of this word nuisance. What is nuisance?
Thank you very much for inviting me here. Nuisance is derived from, in French, known as nuisance, and in Latin, known as nocere, meaning in a simple language, to hurt. It is a common law thought. This certainly means that which causes offense, annoyance, trouble, or injury to another person. That's, in a nutshell, what nuisance means. But under the law, the thought of nuisance is any condition or activity which unduly interferes with the use or enjoyment of land, resulting in consequential injury to another person.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. You know, you are what the Englishman may call a pedagogue. You are teaching this thing. From the classroom, you are here in the studio. Yes. Okay, I may want to come to Larry Nwangu, Emeka Larry Nwangu, another important lawyer here in the studio, to come up with the types of this nuisance, and then two of you may share the explanations.
All right. When you want to talk about nuisance, just like the professor have actually given a working definition of the said topic, from that definition, one can also infer that nuisance can also mean emission of noxious gas. When you emit some noxious gas, from a factory, it can also constitute a nuisance when you obstruct easement. These things can also be seen as acts of nuisance, or a situation where cocks, or should I say very large speakers, either from mosques or from church, you understand, give rise to a certain kind of noise at the early hours of the day or consistently within the day. Those things can lead to nuisance. And a situation where somebody blocks the federal highway, either because you're doing a burial or some activities thereof, this type of things can give rise to, the thought of nuisance. because like I have said that in ordinary usage, nuisance have often been seen as every kind of disturbance or interference, but the thought of nuisance has a restricted definition in law, because it is not every kind of disturbance or interference or annoyance that can amount strictly in law to.
But before we go into the breakages, just like you are talking now, I want you to tell us basically the umbrella under which these ones fall, the types of nuisance, before we begin to exemplify. Prof, can you come in there?
Yes, we have basically two types can be categorized into two types of nuisance. Yeah. We have, generally speaking, public and private nuisance. A nuisance will be held, that is when you consider public nuisance now, will be held to be a public nuisance if it obstructs or causes inconvenience to the public or to all the members of a class of people within a neighborhood. What do I mean? Like my colleague said, when there's an obstruction on the highway, for instance, that disturbs motorists, prevents motorists from using that highway freely as it ought to be used, okay, or a construction going on and it obstructs the free use of the highway by other motorists, then of course it constitutes a nuisance. Okay, that's by way of public nuisance. That's right. And when it affects, or there is a spillage in a river, a stream, where communities go to fetch water. Okay, that spillage can be seen as a public nuisance.
Spillage into the public stream.
Correct. Yes. It's a nuisance.
Sorry for this interruption. I want us to break this thing down further so that people out there will understand. Because my intro says gullible heads and laypersons. If possible, in Igbo language, this aspect of public nuisance on the road by motorists. I bear in mind that we are talking about emission of gas. When people's engines got spoiled to the extent that it doesn't work well with the piston now, it begins to emit very serious gas. I'm sorry I don't have visual. I would have presented a visual to portray what I'm saying. But then, what do you have to say about that? What advice would you like to give to the motorists? This is Christmas season. I said at the beginning, somebody or people used to call others nuisance. You are a nuisance, without actually knowing the meaning of what they're talking about. So what do you have to say about that?
Whatever you do that offends the next person, okay, it constitutes a nuisance, depending on the degree. And then, like I said, it has divided into two. You have public and private. I would come to
before you finish with public and go to news and go to private. Yes. Larry Wangu, Council, do you think Nigerian police are doing enough to checkmate these public nuisance in the aspect of what happens on the road? Prof has talked about spillage that might get damaged, that may damage the stream, where the community or people in the community go to fetch water. But this aspect of the road, talking about exhaust aspect, do you think that people are made to, obey the law by the police doing the needful?
Actually, when you talk about emission of noxious gas or engine emitting some poisonous gas, not only that it constitutes a nuisance, the police themselves, or should I say the vehicle authorities, some of the things that they need to check about roadworthiness of some certain vehicle that plies our road. Back then, in the olden days when the colonial masters were in charge, my father used to say that most vehicle can be off-road, and Amamoto off-road. But today, we drive and use most of our car to the Rubit. until the car stops moving. So long as the car can move, we will still be pushing the car. So these are some of the aspects, because not only that they can constitute nuisance, they are time bombs, that they can endanger the lives, of our citizens. And more also, when you mention about the police, the blocking of express road to some certain extent also can constitute not just only nuisance, it can also lead to very fatal accidents. So most of the times when you talk about law enforcement, gone are the days, when we enforce our laws, by these old methods. When you travel to some part of the world, you might not even know that the law enforcement agents are monitoring what is happening. So since you have brought up the issue of the police, they also need to checkmate themselves in the number of road blockages they are mounting in our roads. All these things are inconvenience. All these things are also because when you talk about vehicle license of an individual, you can check these things without mounting roadblocks. There are many ways we can computerize our cars in such a manner that you will know whose vehicle particulars and all whatnot, even vehicle that is no longer roadworthy. We can do those things. It's a question of the spirit and the commitment.
We can still invite a policeman on this very topic if necessary. But Prof, many a times if you are applying the road, you see about 5, 6, 7 vehicles lined up. And if you are maybe somebody in a hearse, or you are a public servant going late to the office, you are a broadcaster, you now pull off. They will stop you and give you an extra punishment, which may be corporal. How do you see this? Is it lawful for the policeman to have vehicles queued in the name of not necessarily getting the papers or doing the needful? But when once you are ready to settle the rank and file on the road, they can always ask you to go. What do you have to say about that?
Well, that brings one to the issue of corruption that has eaten deep into the fabrics of Nigerian society. On its own, extorting money by policemen on the road is a nuisance. Okay? Disruption of the flow of traffic is a nuisance, whichever way you look at it. If you identify yourself properly on the highway, that this is who you are a broadcaster, for instance, a journalist, and you are rushing in to cover an assignment, of course, the police ought to listen to you to know that, yes, you have or a lawyer, for instance, rushing to court. It is, a few minutes to 9 o'clock when the courts normally resume. And if you identify yourself with the police ought to allow one. So long as you do not have a siren that would enable you move freely and at the speed with which you can get to where you're headed, like the ambulance, they should have free right of way at all times, and security agents. So these are the few areas, but generally speaking, the police, like my colleague said, there's no doubting the fact that there can always be they can always find ways of arresting whoever has done wrong, without necessarily constituting a nuisance to other people. The highway. Oh, on the highway.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much, Prof. You are watching Citizens and the Law on ABS Television, Channel 2 Oka. I have with me here in the studio a professor in law, and I'm talking about Professor Pascal Onyu Oguno, an international professor in law, international linkages, partnership, and all that, director, And so, I also have here in the studio Barrister Larry Emeka Nwangu. We are going to go on a short break and we'll be right back. Dear esteemed viewer, we are still on Nuisance in Law, and something happened, but we have come across that, above that anyway, and we are back and back for better. Prof was talking about public nuisance before. I now put him into some aspects of public nuisance, and that we have all been sharing here. And I want to have some viewer watching this program to fully participate by coming down in our language. Ihe anyị na-ekwu maka ebe a na ọhaneze na iwu na-achị obodo. Ihe anyị na-ekwu maka ya tata bụ ụmụ akparamagwa na-adịghị mma gawa ogbotu uhie nyelu ndị mmadụ na ezinụlọ ma ọ na ọha obodo. Ya ka anyị na-ekwu maka ebe a. Anyị ekwugo maka ihe na-eme n'okporo ụzọ ma n'aka ndị polisi, ma onye moto ya ga-awa omebisi ya, ọ na-akwụ anwụrụ kwudisi anwụrụ ebe niile. Ihe dị otu a ga-ebute ihe mberede nke okporo ụzọ nwere ike igbu mmadụ. Mgbe onye uwe ojii hapụrụ ihe a gwara lụọ na-alụ ihe ọzọ, na-agbanyeghị na ụfọdụ ndị mmadụ na-eje ọlụ, apụta kwụọ ụgbọala n'okporo ụzọ asatọ isii, ihe niile ọlụ ka a na-alụ, mana ọkwa na ọ bụ na ime ife kwesịrị ime farapụ ihe kwesịrị ime n'ụzọ adịrọ mma ka na-ekwu ịnwa gị ebe okwu na-eje. Abịakwa ọzọ ebe m chọrọ ka Prof akụrie nne Enugwu na Ụmụnri ka hapụzie ekpo ya afa nke ọzọ maka ọ naghị asụ Igbo kịta, onye Igbo ka ọ bụ Lara Emeka Nwangwu, onye Igbo. Dịka Krismas, ihe mmemme ncheta ọmụmụ Jizọs Kraịst na-erufu nso, ụmụ akparamagwa na-adịghị mma na-awụ ihe ogbori uhie nyere ọha na eze anyị na-ahụ n'okporo ụzọ. Ataka mma njụọ Prof na ogbo ya n'ebe a, mmụọ ma mmọnwụ a na-eti anọchisi ha okporo ụzọ na-apịa mkpara, ma ndị na-eti kanopi anọchisi okporo ụzọ. Ịbịakwuo n'ime obodo efukwuo ebe ndị mmadụ were kanopi sọba n'etiti iri ọha na eze si aga, asịrị a na-agba nkwụ, asịrị a na-agba nkwụ nwaanyị, ma a na-eme pati ụmụ ihe dị otu a. Prof, iti mmanwụ n'okporo ụzọ, ọ kachasị kịta Krismas na-eru, igbuchi kanopi ụzọ, ịṅụ nkwụ na-aja jọrọ n'okporo ụzọ nke nwere ike nke na-egbochi ndị mmadụ ịga n'ụzọ. Amaghị m ihe oso na ihe anyị na-asụ n'oyibo bụ nuisance ka ọ na usoro ikwu ya onye otu ga-atụ ya ọnụ.
Yes, oso ife ọbụla ga-emetụta ọrụ obodo, ife ọbụla ga-anabiga ọrụ obodo mme ifefa chọọ mmenụ, ọ bụ na onwe ife ị na-eme, ọ bụrụ onye ọbụla na-aga